Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Sideline Eye podcast. You're very welcome to our preview show, and we're looking ahead to Armagh's final league game of the year, and they're at home to Derry on Sunday at 3:45 through-in time. I'm delighted to be joined by Gerard O'Kane, who has been regular over the last year or two when Armagh play Derry. And Gerard, I know this is a big game for Armagh because they're not completely safe in Division 1, while it's hard to know how Derry approach this game, having already fallen out of the top tier. So it's probably a strange enough build up to this one.
Yeah, I suppose from an Armagh perspective, they're still probably thankful it's still in their own hands. So, like Derry knew going into the Mayo game, it wasn't even in their own hands had they won both their games. The best you can hope for is you keep it in your own hands. If you're dependent on results elsewhere, sort of you're in the lap of the gods. Derry didn't even make it that far by getting beat by Mayo. So it can be a difficult week for Paddy Tally in terms of, right, how do we pick the lads up? They have 7 days to the next game. They have 3 weeks to the championship from last Sunday. You don't want to begin to the last game deflated. Now you have a chance maybe to give a few guys a bit of a rest. I've played 6 league games inside 8 weeks, and you fire in 2 or 3 like Owen McAvoy, who's been playing Sigerson in the middle of that as well. So Derry might look at this to give guys a rest, but I'm not sure that the panel depth is there in terms of injuries personnel-wise to do that, because you want to remain competitive. So it's a fine balance. So I'm probably not, I would imagine Derry probably trained last night. Now, I don't know their training nights exactly, but you probably won't know to assess it on the pitch to see, right, who's available, what way can we field here. We also have a championship game in 2 weeks, and you don't want to begin the championship game on the back of probably another defeat where Armagh's going to be up for it. So you want to sort of put the best foot forward and remain competitive.
Yeah, I think that's Derry. I know speaking to you offer about it too, like in terms of maybe taking the chance to rest boys or whatever. Like Conor Glass has been in flying form. I think he scored 1-9 in his last 2 games against Donegal and Mayo. So like, do you take the chance? And when he's in such good form, do you take the chance and play him and hope that he continues that into the championship, or do you give him a break and maybe he wants to play? There's so many question marks over this one in terms of what Paddy Tally's going to do.
Yeah, well, I suppose it's momentum's a fine thing too. And if you are in such good form, you want to keep playing on. I was telling you I was chatting to him at the Hogan final on Monday. We were sitting beside each other, and it was quite like realistic about what happened the day before. But if you look at the week before against Donegal, Derry was 6 up with 63 minutes on the clock and conceded 1-7. So there's a fine line in terms of where Derry are at in terms of regard to the rest of the teams in the division, in terms of getting relegated, in terms of where they're at overall, compared to other teams. The likes of Connor has played every game so far. I think Ethan Doherty probably has, Connor Doherty, I imagine, has Owen McAvoy. There's probably 2 or 3 more have played. Shane Wigan would have played every game. So those lads might look for a rest this week because the Donegal game's 14 days after it. I would imagine the week in between, Derry will probably have some sort of training weekend planned. Whether they do that in-house or whether they head away somewhere, I know as of late, Derry have maybe just used a local hotel in Derry and used Owen Beg as their training base, and lads go home at night and come back in the morning again if they wish. So it's probably Owen Beg facilitates that sort of a setup, which is why I think you'll probably have seen the news Derry City soccer team train there, because everything's on site. So they might just stay around home, but no doubt they'll be together for both the days the following weekend. So if anybody's going to get a rest, probably this is the only weekend they can do it.
And I suppose in terms of Derry going down, Jared, what way has it been received? Because obviously haven't got seeing any of the games in person, seen a couple on TV and highlights and stuff. Like Derry probably they deserved of more than 1 point on the board. I think that's a fair way of putting it. That their performances haven't reflected where they are on the table. Probably the Dublin game was the only really bad performance they had, but every other game they've been right in it, and just it didn't go their way really.
Yeah, the Dublin game was one that they can sort of put a black line through. They weren't really competitive in terms of the scoreline. Dublin just always seemed to complete control. Whereas if you mirror that with, say, the Kerry game, where they conceded goals in the 68th, and 69th minute and didn't even get a chance for the kick out. The Galway game where they had a poor first half now, but they battled back well, and the game was going to last another 3 or 4 minutes. Derry is probably going to be the winners, it looked like. And the Dublin game was in between that. The Mayo game, even the score before half time sort of rocked them their heels a bit. Give Mayo just a wee bit of daylight at half time, which they probably didn't deserve overall. So like when you're taking that into account, anybody I've been chatting to, I sort of go back to like Derry now, Christy McKay's gone, and at some level you have to say, right, you can't count him as missing anymore. But because it's so recent, and because he's been an integral part of the team for like 15 years, he's a void to fill. There's no doubt about that. Then you look at Gareth McKinless, who's gone for the year, and Conor McCluskey. There's 3 of your back 6 that have traditionally played there this last 3 years. They won 2 Ulsters, 3 All-Stars. Then you fire in Padraig McGrogan, who missed a full year, is only 2 games back in. So there's 4 out of your back 6. And Conor Doherty and McAvoy have been there consistently since that. But I think Derry, am I right in saying Derry, bar 1 or 2 teams, have conceded the most in the league, and they've conceded the most goals out of the 4 divisions. And that would tell you, if you're missing them 4 defenders, you're, in theory, if you're looking down a pecking order, you're now into defender number 10 or 11 to fill that void. And then once Derry were beating Donegal by 6. Next thing, Rogers gets hurt, McAvoy gets hurt, and they concede 1-7. So you're down into picking what would just be guys who would be maybe 11 and 12. No, they're all young players come through, but when you're missing that core of them 6 players, that defence, is hard to fill. I think the score lines against them sort of show that. So it's about sort of trying to, I know Paddy Talley himself is seen as a defensive coach, but I suppose he's shorn of his first choice 3 or 4 at least, who are all-stars in the last 3 years. So it's difficult to sort of try to bed all that in with, I suppose the new rules is new for everybody. So, but he's trying to do that without putting his best hand forward. And that's difficult, So I think on a whole, going down to Division 2, it allowed Armagh and Donegal last year to blood more players. Now, if they go down to Division 2, there's no guarantee they're going to come straight back up, because if they do try and blood new players, it's hard to do that in Division 1. But Division 2, if you look at this year, between Roscommon, Meath, Monaghan, and now Cavan, get into the last day, there's 4 teams there and 8 and 10 points. So it's quite competitive too. So it's going to be it's just going to take time to blood them new defenders. And at the same time, you're trying to keep the forward line ticking over by replacing Niall Loughlin. Kieran McFall hasn't been available either. So you're now down to missing 6 or 7 there who've traditionally been playing for Derry. So I suppose for Paddy and the rest of the management team, it's been a steep learning curve.
And those injuries, Gerard, obviously you mentioned Chrissy McKay has retired, and Gareth McKinless is out with his ACL, so he'll not be playing this year. Is Conor McCluskey coming back? Brendan Rodgers, like, is there a time frame for these boys when you think they're going to be available again?
I think Rodgers should be all right. He went off. It showed the Donegal game on TV if you watch the replay of it. He went off. He sort of went over his foot in the grass and sort of hopped up. So it wasn't like a really serious injury, but it's enough to keep him out for a few weeks. McCluskey, I think, I wouldn't be talking at a shop because you hear stuff in the grapevine. He probably won't be fit. He finished playing for Derry last year whenever Kerry beat them that day in Croke Park, and he never released boots from Armagh in the championship. So Derry played.
I didn't realise he's been out.
And that Marfelt got to the semi-final. Sure, do you remember the game? It was famous on RTE that night where Newbridge scored a late goal. Right. So Conor missed, would have been 3 group games, a quarter-final, a semi-final, and never even talked for them. So I think he broke down right. I think he was carrying an injury, and he broke down around that time. Derry played Kerry from memory around the 8th or 9th of June last year. So you're talking now he's into 9 months. So there was an operation there. I think it's maybe the groin or the hip or something like that. So the chance of him being back in the next 2-3 weeks is probably non-existent. The chance of him being back even in time for a run in the championship would be very unlikely. So I don't know what way he's been treated in the medical team, but he's a he's a major loss for Derry because he's been integral to them in terms of doing a man-marking job like he was done on, say, Shane Walsh there one year in the All-Ireland semi-final. And was it, I can't remember who he marked against Kerry the year they pushed Kerry a point, but he's fit to also break forward with pace. And I suppose, again, with the new rules, he hasn't got a chance to experience them, but he'd be brilliant at getting ahead of the ball, getting an overlap. So I think Connor, and now I think Owen Lynch went off the weekend at Gallagher. It's not that great of news either. So they're sort of down more men than they have available at the moment.
I think injuries have just been a big part of this campaign, and Armagh's the same, Jared, because I know every time I interview Kieran McGeeney, he sort of says that they've got two back, but there's two dropping out. Like the other day, Ben Creeley come back in, and Kieran Mack and Joe McElroy came back, but they lost Moss McCormick, Ross McQuillan, and Jason Duffy. So I think every team's just sort of struggling with injuries and stuff. But I suppose where Armagh's lucky is they do have that sort of depth. They have that strong bench of a Jordy O'Byrne, a Stephen Campbell, players like that they can call on.
Yeah, like I think we talked at length last year a few times. Armagh have a squad of 42. I think that Tomas McCormick only make his league debut this year.
Yeah.
But he's been on this is his third year in the squad. So to keep somebody like that about for 24 months and give him the chance then, he takes it with both hands. I would have seen him playing for Queen's Freshers about 5 years ago, so I've kept an eye on him. He's really probably took 2 years and around the squad to play and train at that level to get you ready for league football. Whereas Derry have been firing on lads this year who are in the squad in their first 3, 4, 5 months. Like Patrick McGurk started on Sunday against Mayo at wing back. Dan Higgins started at number 12. Those lads haven't been training with Derry for 24 months. So that's where Armagh sort of that benefit that Tomas McCormick can have 2 years under his belt and then get his debut as opposed to being fired straight in. As a young lad, Dara McMullen, he's probably similar, is he? I've seen him playing at 12, playing very well. But Gallagher's been on the squad for a year or two now at least. Again, he gets to train at that level for 18, 24 months and then bet him in as opposed to bring him into the squad in January and firing him in March. So Armagh have that benefit of having that strength and depth, which shows Kieran and the rest of the management team have built up over the last few years. So sort of kudos to them for doing it.
And what have you made of Armagh's campaign so far, Jared? I suppose good at home games and poor away is probably the simplistic way of saying it. The 5 points all picked up on home ground on 3 defeats all away from home.
Yeah, I suppose I've seen the Tyrone game that night. I've seen the Galway game, and even the Galway game, they beat by 6. They conceded 5 points from having the 3 up that night. And I suppose that was the first night it was new to everybody. So you thought, right, they'll maybe learn from it. So they went back and get next night again Tyrone and completely obliterated them. So you thought from then on they would kick on. As you say, it's been up and down that way. Like they picked up 2 points at home v Dublin. Look, again, the same as Tyrone. Look, they obliterated them in the first half. Mightily impressive. Same as Mayo, actually. Half time, they were cruising. Was it 111? They 5 points after half an hour or something. And for Mayo to come back and draw was probably a kick in the teeth for Armagh. But their away form, suppose you can write the Galway game off as the first day out back in January, All-Ireland champions. They'd be more concerned with what happened down in Killarney probably because they're 6 weeks into it now. They went down to Killarney. Granted, they were missing a few from what usually start, but Kerry showed a fair bit of bite, which they don't usually show. But then you find that if a team has beaten Kerry in the year or two previous, like Armagh beat them last year, it happened with Tyrone a few times down to Killarney. Kerry just seemed to have that bit between their teeth. And Tyrone people took it as what would they say, as sort of nearly as I'm lost for words here, but they took it as a backhanded compliment that Kerry team was raising themselves for this game here, and I think Kerry was raising themselves for Armagh. It was evident from the way they went at the game, from even off the ball stuff, the way they get involved, that they were showing plenty of aggression that they just wouldn't usually show for a round 6 league game. So I think given where Armagh have put themselves in the national radar and the pedestal, they'll get that. So I suppose like for Kieran McGinn and the management team, it's been looking at if a team matches our aggression levels, where do we go from there? And any team that is doing that at the minute, I think are coming out on top of Armagh. So because that's one of Armagh's sort of things where they came through last year. They were just seemed more aggressive, more hungry, not in like a not like a dirty way or an over the top. They just seem physically to be on teams all the time. And then once you're at that level, you can break them down footballing ways, which Armagh done. But when teams are matching that, I suppose it's something for the Armagh management now to figure out, well, if teams are now coming at us and they're matching that level of aggression, that level of tenacity, we have to find something different here.
Yeah,
So I don't know if Derry will have that level of aggression or tenacity on Sunday, given that they're relegated already. So it might play in Armagh's hands a bit.
I think as Armagh fans maybe hoping that there is a bit of a bounce back from Armagh, given how poor they were at the weekend. And the second half they're coming back into it, but basically the lead was too big for them to change anything. The first half was really poor, so I think as Armagh fans, you're hoping that there's a bit of a bite back this week, because as we know they need the points in terms of relegation, because I know I was writing up a permutations thing for the website, and it's a bit of a head racker depending on how results go. But it could turn out Armagh do win at the weekend, they get 7 points, and they could still end up being relegated via score difference. So not only do they need to win, Gerard, they maybe have to put up a big score here too.
Well, something they've done at home is put up big scores anyway. Now, the Mayo game aside, their score difference would have been 0 coming out of it because it was a draw. But the Tyrone game and Dublin game, they're looking at plus 10, plus 8, plus 6 between the two. So over the two games, plus 16 or something. So if you can put up a score of any score of plus 4, plus 5 in the first division, is a decent score. So, and even if Tyrone won, I know the permutations are all up in the air. I don't know that Tyrone are going to be beating Dublin by that plus 10 swing that they'll need to get above Armagh or whatever. There's fair chance Tyrone could take Dublin to Omagh and beat them. But I don't know if they're going to beat them by 6, 7, 8 points, because Dublin seem to be in the way of going now that they're starting to bet in a few who have been traditionally fringe players, but they're not looking like fringe players again, because probably the same as Armagh. The guys that Dublin are bringing on have been in a Dublin squad for 24 months now. So they're not just in the squad in January, which is what Derry have tried to do because they're missing so many. These guys have been in the squad for 24 months. So they're physically at that level. So it's just about biding their time and waiting for their chance, which they're doing. So I don't know if Tyrone will get it that handy. I think that might play into Armagh's hands as well.
And just before we wrap up, I'll ask you, who do you think's going to win this game? And more than ever, this is an impossible call, because as we said, as we started the show, we're not sure how Derry are going to prepare for this. So they're going to maybe send a weakened team, or they're going to come full strength. They have nothing to play for. Like it's hard to know what's going to happen and what Derry are going to do. But how do you see this going? Is it an Armagh victory, or how do you see it all panning out?
I suppose the case of needs must in terms of points. It's hard to look past Armagh for that reason. Like they used to have more riding on it. Given they only come up from Division 2 last year and they won the All-Ireland, they want to prove a point that they're at that level and they'll stay there. Because if Armagh go back down, people will then say, well, sure, we told you that All-Ireland was a flash in the pan because they're in Division 1 and they can't stick with the 8 teams. It's there. So I think in terms just of needs must, pressure on, I think probably everything's pointing towards an Armagh victory, and I'm saying that as a Derry man, simply because, and like Derry's not going to go out and roll over and lie down, because you're playing county football, you don't do that. But I just think now Derry will maybe have their minds focused on 3 weeks ahead, whereas Armagh don't simply have that luxury. Armagh will be throwing all their eggs in this basket on Sunday just to get the victory, and then they can look ahead to what their 2 week or 3 week break would be for the Antrim game. So, I think the bookies have it 1-4, 41. If it was a betting man and I was betting with a tenner of yours, I would probably still bet in Derry for the chance to get £40 out of it. But if I was betting my own, I would probably go for the safe option and probably go for Armagh.
Yeah, well, I'm hoping you're right, Jared, that Armagh, they do have more to play for. There's no two ways about it. So hopefully that's enough on the day to not only get the win, but keep them up in Division One. I know Armagh fans enjoyed the trip to Kerry at the weekend, and looking for more big trips hopefully next year as well. Playing Division One football. So Jared, great to hear from you. Thanks very much for coming on. I'll chat to you again.
Yeah, no problem. Cheers.
The 2025 season is here, and it comes with huge ambition and momentum both on and off the pitch. We're building for the future, investing in top-class county training facilities to support our players and our county teams. Thanks to your support, we've already made incredible progress delivering 2 full-size grass pitches. Now work is underway on a brand new strength and conditioning hub, but we're not stopping there. This is a game-changing time for our county, and we need your support to take it to the next level. Join us in building a brighter future for our teams, our players, and the generations to come.